guys, it is Monday, August the 26th. Week 20 in the Bigs has come to a close. And what an amazing week we had. We had guys at the top sort of closing the gap, guys in the middle making things very interesting coming down to the final 2 weeks for the playoff hunt. Let me bring in my co-host, and it will not be Benjamin Aloysius Nisman this week yet. We're going to split up this week into two episodes, one today and one tomorrow. We're going to highlight four matchups this week, or 4 matchups today and 4 matchups tomorrow. But coming off the bench for us this week, Michael Cornelius Haber. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Joe. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm pleased to have you come off the bench for us. You've been leading the way here for the last couple of weeks, and taking a loss this week as we jump into your matchup. Just wanted to again thank you for coming on. Thank you for picking up the slack where Benji was unable to join us this week.
Absolutely, pleasure to be here.
Appreciate it. Let's jump into your matchup with your brother here, and this must be along with the Nisman brothers squaring off. This must be one of the key matchups for your season. Tell us what it's like to face your brother, especially twice this year.
So facing my brother is always interesting. I don't know if Ben and Ari are the same way, but Josh and I don't talk about the matchup when it happens. And I heard you and Ben actually talking about this earlier in the year when you guys faced off, that you guys try to avoid talking about it for the whole week. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. My brother is not a manager who makes a lot of moves. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, I'm sort of competing against myself, making moves, whether they fail or don't fail. And this week, as you saw, it was a bit of a struggle for me, for sure.
Yeah, this week was a bit rough for you, man. You take a 10-8 loss here to your brother. Close categories this week. You won by 2 doubles, and you lost by a triple. Everything else was fairly, blowout worthy. You guys tied in steals, wins, and home runs given up by a pitcher. For your team, you went 9 for 46 on your bench. That's a 196 batting average, which is literally right in line with what you had in your lineup, which is really disappointing for this offense that you've seen, pretty much carry you for the last few weeks. You hit 197 for the week, so 196 on the bench is sort of right there. 7 runs, a double, 4 homers, 9 RBIs, 5 walks, and 14 strikeouts. None of that plays. None of it matters because it wouldn't change anything. You lost by 10 runs. You lost by 6 homers and 13 RBIs. Like, none of it really matters. Your moves this week, again, you talked about you're competing against yourself as far as this matchup is concerned, but let's not forget you're competing against 14 other guys, and I just want to say go fuck yourself for picking up Matt McGill, man. That was a great pickup for you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a clutch move. I had no idea if he was actually going to stick, but looks like he's the closer to own right now in Seattle. So.
Yeah, for somebody who was trying to scrape together a bullpen after that big trade, I grabbed Anthony Bass thinking that was going to be the guy, and it looks like it's not going to be. And it was really disappointing to see him get 2 saves in a row and go to the waiver wire and see that you had already grabbed him. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Hey, it happens. That's the Bigs. We talk about the shortcomings of your offense, man. Only one day did you hit higher than 217 for the day. It was Tuesday. It was 276. That was also the last time you were even tied in this matchup. You trailed the whole way, and it just looks like you ran into a much better offense. I'll say this much though: if you're gonna take a loss, in the position you're in. I know it must sting to take it to your brother, but you take it now and your team hits a skid, in week 20 than, say, 3 weeks from now in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. And honestly, if I knew I was going to take a loss this week given my offensive production, but 10-8, I'm actually okay with it because my pitching kept me in the matchup the whole time. And one or two different innings on Sunday, and suddenly this is a 9-9 matchup. So
Yeah.
I felt like it was rough to take the loss, but all things considered, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, Sunday, as far as that's concerned, let's take a look and see what you did there. Because, I mean, this is, like you said, this was a pretty close matchup. Looks like, well, you sent Clay Buchholz, and I don't blame you. You know, it wasn't, Clay Buchholz isn't exactly a world burner. He's coming off the 60-day DL, but he was going up against Seattle. I saw that you did pick him up, and I wanted to thank you for that because I was in a dogfight with Jason and was wondering if that was going to be the guy you picked up. It wasn't, obviously. But it looks like Aaron Nola took a loss against Miami.
Yeah.
That stings.
And he had I think it was 5 scoreless, 6 scoreless. He gave up 3 runs in the 6th inning on like a bloop signal and a double, something like that. 3 runs, and that lost me the ERA right there. And then it also lost me the win. So if he doesn't give up those 3 runs, it's 9-9 ERA, and then I got the win. So it's 10-9.
Yeah.
So
and it's that
one.
It's that close. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, even if you had played Buchholz, it wouldn't have lowered your ERA far enough. He also took a loss, so I mean, you know, that was a smart benching. Yeah, the home run is huge because that would have untied that category, you know, in another direction. Yeah. So yeah, that was a huge benching, pretty smart move. I assume that was probably just for insurance, you know, in case you needed it, or.
Yeah, I was watching. So for me, all day it was Aaron Nola versus Cole Hamels. Mm-hmm. So I was watching the Phillies Marlins game, and I had the Nationals Cubs on the other channel. And all week I'm watching as the Nationals are just killing it. And of course, because Josh has Adam Eaton, he has the two catchers on Washington. So I'm watching the 2 of them rake all week. Mm-hmm. And come Sunday, I'm like, okay, they're going to kill Cole Hamels. It's fine. I got him in ERA. I don't know why he's starting Cole Hamels against a really hot offense. And then, what did he give up? 2 runs in 6 innings? And
yeah, it looks like it was. Really well. It looks like it was 2 earned over 5 with a homer, a walk, and 3 strikeouts. And funny you mentioned Adam Eaton and the catchers. None of them were playing that day. Adam Eaton was on the bench, and he benched Kurt Suzuki in favor of Jan Gomes, who was not in the lineup. So none of that matters. You know, it's just one of those funny little anecdotes where, yeah, I mean, look, the Nationals were incredibly hot, and nobody knows that more than me watching Juan Soto explode all week. So that was, but I was pretty sure I was playing. Was I playing up against Anthony Rendon? Is that yes, I was. So it was one of those catch-22s where Rendon gets up to the plate. Oh great, he just singled. Well, okay, well here comes Juan Soto. So you know, but let's jump to Josh's team. On his bench, he went 6 for 35. That's a 171 batting average. Much in the same line with yours, only his team produced in the lineup where yours didn't. He left 3 runs, a double, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 4 walks, 13 strikeouts, and an error. None of that plays because, again, these most of the offensive categories were lopsided except for like doubles and triples, you know, and steals being tied. He only made 1 roster move this week. It was dropping Brandon Lau. Brandon Lau's probably not coming back this season. We're getting to that time of year where if you hit an injury, and we'll get to somebody here in a little bit who's just faced awful injury after awful injury. But if it's sort of, you know, if you're on the mend and you have a setback, it's almost not worth it if your team's not in the race. And if you get a nasty enough injury, it could end your fantasy season. So it's going to be difficult down the stretch to see, you know, what teams are going to do, especially, say, a team like the Yankees, who are bringing back Giancarlo Stanton, but how soon? How close to the playoffs are they going to bring him? You know, how many at-bats does he really see before what they're really going for, which is October? Right.
And I'm struggling with that, too, with my first baseball.
Yeah,
right now.
You've got Edwin Encarnacion and Aaron Hicks. You know, are those guys going to contribute at all for you down the stretch, or is there a point where you just sort of have to cut bait?
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
It'll be interesting to see what the Yankees do. Being that far ahead in the East is, also in play here. It'd be one thing if they were fighting for the East or fighting for a wild card. You'd probably see these guys come back quicker. But being where they are, a guy like, I don't know. Say it was a Dodger. Say it's Rich Hill, for example. Rich Hill's probably not going to come back until about 2 weeks before the season is over, so that he can get a couple starts under his belt and go into the playoffs. Dodgers are 20 games up, so it's not really a point to own Rich Hill unless you really think you're going to be there in the final 2 weeks of the season.
Is he pitching out of the bullpen, or is he?
That's also true. They might be bringing him back just as a reliever, but then you start wondering what's going to happen with their rotation, because there's rumors that they're going to shut down Ryu for a while to get him some rest before the playoffs. So,
okay.
If you shut down Ryu and you give Kershaw, maybe you skip one of his starts, there's your 1-2 in the playoffs. Is Rich Hill the 3? No, it's probably Walker Buehler, now that I think about it.
Right.
So there's your 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and then you got, Buehler and Urias and that kid May that just came up. Those are the guys that are going to back end that rotation. But again, you're probably looking at a situation where you're not going to get anything out of that guy. I did see that he was just picked up. I don't know who snagged him off the top of my head. But somebody grabbed him off the waiver wire recently, and I was like, that's an interesting grab. Anyway, let's go to key players this week. For Josh, who won this week, Freddie Freeman must have just worn you out, man. 240 batting average, 296 on base, 5 runs, 4 homers, 7 RBIs, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. I know as a Met fan he was wearing us the fuck out, and he only had 2 hits in the series, but it just felt like every day this guy was beating us up.
Yep. Freddie Freeman was a monster this week.
Yeah. Bo Bichette, where did this kid come from? Like this.
I don't know.
I mean, I know he was a top prospect in the Jays system, but wow, he has come to play. 407 average and on base this week, 6 runs, 2 doubles, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, 6 strikeouts. This is a world beater for him, and considering he doesn't even have a backup infielder for second, third, or shortstop, like he's rolling these 3 guys out every day.
Yep.
So to see, he locked in Bo Bichette, who's hitting 350 since his call up. Like this kid's amazing, and the Blue Jays are going to be really good for years to come with him and Kevin Biggio and Vlad Guerrero. Those guys are going to be amazing next year.
The Blue Jays are scary, and at Lourdes Gurriel and Zednik, but you got to get. They got to get like 1 or 2 frontline starters, and then that team is scary in the East next year.
Yeah, I don't know much about their farm system. I would imagine they have some pitcher. I mean, they did trade for Anthony Kay. Maybe that's the kid that they covet most. But my understanding is that guy, projects as like a 3 starter. So be interesting to see what they do. Finally, for Josh, JD Martinez had another great week. 353 average, 455 on base, 4 runs, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts. Offensively, again, it was an incredible week for him. 297 average, 373 on base. The guy just kept hitting. This isn't to take a slight at Marcell Ozuna, who had a 400 and a 483 on base with a triple and 2 homers, 7 RBIs and 7 runs scored. It was just a really offensive attack on you, and the thing is, even with the low batting average and the fairly bad on base percentage, your counting stats would play most weeks against a lot of teams.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's not like your team just laid an entire egg.
Right. And that's if I actually played Didi on the day that he went nuts and hit 2 home runs, 5 RBIs.
Yeah,
I put him on that's the one day in the past probably 5 weeks that I've benched Didi for DeYoung. And the reason why is because he's going up against Hyun-Jin Ryu on LA. And I guess it was a lesson to me, even against the best pitchers and a lefty, he could still go off and hit 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. Not that it would have made a difference for the week, but a little more respectable 11 home runs, 31 RBIs.
Yeah.
At the end of the week.
Yeah, the only other thing I saw was Chris Davis going 1 for 3 with a homer and 2 RBIs on your bench, but Yordan Alvarez was 0 for 4 in left field. Doesn't look like you played Chris Davis at all this week. How disappointed are you in a guy that you drafted, 3rd round and top 35 pick, to where you're starting, the hottest rookie in the league over him now?
Yeah, I mean, all I have to say about that is that I'm lucky I was able to pick up Alvarez, because it really has made the Chris Davis's lack of hitting a little bit more bearable this year. But it is disappointing that he's on my bench pretty much every day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have the heart to drop him yet, because a day like today, when I don't have another left field to play, and I'm going to play Chris Davis, but still, I mean, it's hard to get him in the lineup, because it's usually 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts.
Yeah, so. I mean, he's striking out a ton, as you expect with Chris Davis, but, you also expected 40 homers and a 247 batting average. It's just not happening this year. He's only hitting 215 with 18 and 55 RBIs. This is a guy that year in and year out was a Ben Nisman special. Like, you expected Chris Davis on his roster. You expected Carlos Santana to kind of balance out the average and the on-base percentage from that guy. And I remember sitting in the draft and seeing Chris Davis go off the board and just go, all right, so Ben didn't grab him. Interesting. I'm sure. I think Ben has told the story on the show that you texted him during the draft saying sorry about grabbing Chris Davis. Like,
I think so. Yeah.
It was a pretty big get for you. And early on in the season, it looked like you were putting together a hell of an offense or a hell of an outfield. Mookie Betts and Chris Davis, putting those guys together. Add in a third guy like, say, an Alvarez, or early on in the season there was a vetoed trade where you were getting JD Martinez. Like, put that guy in that lineup, and ironically, that's a guy who kills you this week because your brother trades for him. Just interesting stuff. Key pitchers for Josh this week. Again, these guys were really good. James Paxton gave him 6 2/3 with a win and 11 strikeouts, a 2.70 ERA and a 75 WHIP. Julio Teheran, one of the members of that trade, 7 innings, a win, 9 strikeouts, 3 walks, nothing earned, a 1.14 WHIP. And Kyle Hendricks, you talked about the matchup that he was having, or that the Cubs had with the Nationals. Well, right before that, they were playing the Giants, and Hendricks went 7 innings, 7 strikeouts, a win, nothing earned, and an 0.43 WHIP. The pitching categories were incredibly close for many of them. Josh pitched to a 2.88 ERA, and these guys are certainly a damn good reason why. Tell me what you were seeing from his pitching stats all week.
Well, I don't know if it was on purpose, but if it was brilliant. But Jake Odorizzi and Mike Leake, who are also on his team, sat on the bench this week. And both of them took a loss, and both gave up significant amount of runs. I don't know if that was a conscious decision on his part, or if he missed playing them.
Right.
But obviously it would have changed innings pitched and strikeouts towards the end of the week, but I could have compensated for that. But it seemed like everyone he played just had a killer week. Like James Paxton against the Dodgers. I was like,
yeah,
why is he playing James Paxton against the Dodgers? I've watched Paxton all year get knocked around, especially going to LA, and he pitched the best game of the year for him. So I mean, some of it's unexplainable, but it's an interesting strategy when you play against a manager with 3 relief pitchers and no closers.
Yeah.
So I knew all I had to do was get a save. I could play my relief pitchers kind of at will and bench some of them if the ERA and home runs got close at the end.
Right.
I don't know if I needed to do that because But I mean, yeah, it just seemed like it was one of those weeks where, I mean, Julio Teheran against Miami is a lock. I mean, he
But is it though? Because this guy has been pretty bad in the month of August. I mean, this is part of the reason. And Frank came on the show, or Frank has told us all, like, he really thought this guy was going to blow up in August. And you know, he came in against the Mets last time out, inning in the third, 8 runs, and it just looked like crap. You know,
yeah.
And now his next start tomorrow, or actually he starts today. I don't know if he's in Josh's lineup. I can find out momentarily. But that's in Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
And he is in the lineup for Josh today. So we'll see if that's something he really wants to do. But man, that is a scary start.
Yeah. It also, I mean, if you look at his starts against Miami this year, I'm trying to bring them up right now. So this past one was 7 innings, 1 win, 9 strikeouts, no runs. And then on July 5th, August 9th, he pitched against Miami again. 7 innings, 1 win. He gave up a solo home run, 7 strikeouts. And then July 5th, 6 innings, no runs, 6 strikeouts. So I knew going into it, like, for some reason he had this team's ticket. I mean, not tough against the Marlins.
Right. Yeah. That's a hell of a deep dive.
Then Aaron Nola gives up 3 runs.
Yeah. Aaron Nola, gives up 3 runs to Miami, the next day, I guess, or the day after. That was a killer. That was a killer. Let's jump to your key players here. We got Cesar Hernandez, who's been just a godsend at second base for you this year. 316 average, 458 on base, 5 runs, 2 doubles, an RBI, 5 walks, 3 strikeouts, and an error. I highlight him. Obviously, you won doubles and walks, the only 2 offensive categories you took. And Cesar Hernandez is much the catalyst to that. Tell me about him. Yeah. You picked him up in the 12th round, almost picked 200, and he's been great for you.
He has. I feel like this is another Ben Nisman pick right here. I don't know historically how many times he's had him. I just feel like he's always had Cesar. But yeah, no, he's a solid player. I'd say a down year from, if you look at his stats last year, he was up to double digits in home runs and stolen bases, and he's hitting for less power and running a little bit less this year, but he's still got the batting average up. He still gets on base. He still scores a lot of runs. Racks up some doubles.
And that Phillies lineup is pretty potent when they're all clicking.
The Phillies lineup is potent, and it has helped and hurt me because for a while he was hitting 7th or 8th in that lineup. Just recently, they moved him back to the leadoff spot. I don't know if that's temporary or if it's going to stick, but hopefully he stays in that spot for me. So yeah, no, he's been a solid player for me. He doesn't strike out that much. If you look at my starting lineup, he's got the least strikeouts out of anyone who's been playing for me all year.
Yeah. Mookie Betts gave you a good week as well, your first round pick, 286 average, 304 on base, 3 runs, 3 doubles, 2 RBIs, a steal, a walk, and 4 strikeouts. You tied steals, and there it is. Again, the doubles is huge, and a couple of walks or a walk thrown in there just for good measure.
Right.
Looking back on the draft, and the biggest name that fell in the top of the draft was Christian Yelich. Was there any thought when you were sitting there with the number 2 pick to taking Yelich, or was it always Mookie Betts if Mike Trout was taking 1?
I think it was always Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
I mean, Yelich had an incredible end to last season, but I hate drafting someone in the top, the first round off of a hot streak.
Right.
And I wasn't sure if Yelich before that was a double hitter and he would get on base, but he did not hit for power. And he stole maybe 10, 15 bases, but top 3 pick, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
so for me, in my head, it was always Mookie Betts if I had that number 2 pick.
yeah. I mean, I was sitting at 7 and was hoping that Yelich would fall to me. I know that there was at least one manager in the draft who was saying I would take Christian Yelich number 1 overall. I think that there's an argument to be made now for next season that Yelich is number 1 overall. But the biggest faller in that really upper echelon here, especially this year, is Mookie Betts. You're just not getting a Mookie Betts season that you were expecting with the number 2 pick. He hasn't been bad, but he's certainly not 300 hitter, 35 homers, 20 plus steals. You're not going to get that this year.
Yeah, it's definitely been a disappointing season. I mean, you look at his counting stats. He blows my team away in runs, in doubles, in triples, in walks. I mean, so he gets the counting stats, but it doesn't feel like it feels like he's doing it slowly, and it doesn't feel like it's happening all at once, or that it puts me over the edge for a week. I never feel like Mookie Betts carries me for a week. So I don't know. I felt like every time I played against him last year, he just ripped me apart.
Right.
So.
And last year, he had a ridiculous season. Last year he hit 346, 32 homers, 80 RBIs, 30 steals. You're not getting that this season. He's back down to 285, and maybe that's really where he is. Maybe he is an upper 200s hitter and not a 350 hitter. Maybe that's realistic to put in play here. Maybe instead of being, the 1A behind Mike Trout, maybe he's a back end of the first round guy going forward, and Yelich and Bellinger are the guys that are going to ascend this year. To the top of next year.
I'm really curious where he goes next year.
Yeah.
I'm curious who's going to take a flyer on him.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get him at a discount next year, and it'll be it won't be much. I'd be very surprised if he fell out of the first round, because he's still he's still a 20-20 guy with a high average and a ton of runs scored. So. And I think the Red Sox lineup is going to be better next year. I think this year was sort of a, hey, we gave you the World Series last year. Give us this year to retool everything, and we'll be back next year out of Boston.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Finally, this week, Yordan Alvarez. We talked about him earlier. 176 average for the week. Nobody hit on your team very well, but the .417 on base percentage is what's huge. 3 runs, 3 doubles, 3 RBIs, 7 big walks, and 4 strikeouts. We talked about him earlier. Anything else you can throw on top from Yordan Alvarez?
No, I don't think so. There was one day this week where he came to the plate 4 times and walked 4 times. I don't remember what day it was, but it's just for a young guy to have that type of patience, it's really impressive, because he hits for power, but he also is a really controlled hitter. So it's cool to see it.
Yeah, that was on Tuesday against Detroit. Spencer Turnbull's start. It was in fact the last time that I think that Josh is going to see Aaron Sanchez as well, who went down with an injury and is now sitting on the DL. Does Houston even bother bringing this guy back? You weren't going to see him in the playoffs with their front 4, Greinke, Verlander, Cole, and Wade Miley. You weren't going to see him as a starter in the playoffs, but coming out of the bullpen would be huge for them. I think this is a guy next year under Houston's tutelage could really break out. This was a key piece for Toronto a few years ago. They thought that this was going to be their next ace right alongside Marcus Stroman. It just didn't pan out. The guy has blister problems, and I think he's a bit of a head case as well. But if you can get him in Houston's, to do what they've done with Verlander and Miley this year, and Charlie Morton, another perfect example, put this guy in that rotation under that coaching staff. This could be a guy you get late next year that could really pay off.
A true sleeper for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
There was talk during the trade deadline that Zach Wheeler was going to be the guy that Houston was going after. Obviously, they went after Zach Greinke instead. But my thought was, I really don't want to see Zach Wheeler with the Astros. Not because I don't want to see him succeed, but I don't want to see him succeed because, that's our guy. And if he goes to Houston and just all of a sudden figures out whatever it is that's making him a middling number 4 and turns into, their 4th number 1, that would be ridiculous.
And that's exactly what would happen.
Oh, yeah. Well, look at a guy, and I was talking to Benji about this, look at a guy like Rafael Montero, who's now apparently going to be the setup guy in Texas. Or a guy like Hansel Robles, who's now the closer in Anaheim. You look at so many of these pitchers who they're terrible and we'll ship them out, turn around and are fantastic for other teams. And we've got I'm going to go on a fucking Mets rant here. The Mets have a fucking a manager who was and came with an incredible reputation of being a really great pitching coach in Cleveland. Corey Kluber, Carlos Carrasco, Danny Salazar, Mike Clevenger, all of those great names from Cleveland were he helped create that. And when you dropped him in Queens, and it's DeGrom and Syndergaard and Wheeler and Matz and all these fucking great names, what the fuck? Other than DeGrom and his Cy Young season last year, and he follows it up with a great season this year, this guy has seen all of those good pitchers regress. Look at what the fuck are they doing to Edwin Diaz? This guy had 50 some odd saves last year. What have they done to him? The only other good pitcher to improve is Seth Lugo. Other than that, this is a disaster. And if the Mets don't make the playoffs, I really think Mickey's job should be in jeopardy. But that's just me. End rant. For your pitchers this week, there, Mike, we'll go to Will Smith, not the rapper, not the catcher, but the reliever. 2 relief appearances, 2 innings, a save, a walk, a strikeout, a 1 whip. It did take down in the saves category for you. The relief appearances, like you said, was really easy to try and go get when you're facing a guy who only has 3 relievers. Mike McGill, another one you picked up off the scrap heap. 2 innings, a loss, 2 saves, a homer, a walk, 3 strikeouts, 3 relief appearances, a 9 ERA, a 250 whip. I don't highlight him for the ERA and the whip, though I'm sure you'd like to have that homer back. Just to drop that one back in there, and who knows? Maybe that 1 run is the difference there between the 288 and the 309 you pitched to. Finally, I do highlight Aaron Nola. You won innings, you won strikeouts. This is definitely the guy who helped carry you to that. 14 innings, a win, a loss, a homer, 2 walks, and 14 strikeouts, a 3.21 ERA, and an 0.79 whip. That's not to poo-poo John Means, who was also really good for you, 12 innings with 11 strikeouts. Nola definitely has given you an interesting season. Tell me what it's like to have been an owner of this guy all year.
After last year, you were expecting him to carry a team, and you know what? He really has the second half of the year. I think it was the first, 7 or 8 starts of the season. He was just slow to warm up, I guess. So it was frustrating, but I knew I wasn't going to drop him. He was my top pitcher. I was thinking of maybe flipping him for some trade bait towards the trade deadline, but once Flaherty started picking it up, and Soroka, I knew that I had a really, really solid top 3. And with Madison Bumgarner as a 4th starter is really not bad. So I didn't want to split him because right now the strength in my team is my pitching staff. So Nola's been great, but he's been great because he's been paired with Flaherty and Soroka, and those 3 are going to carry me straight through, I think.
Yeah, Jack Flaherty has been the hottest pitcher in baseball since Independence Day. You know how many earned runs he's given up since July 4th?
Total? I don't know. How many? 5.
5 earned runs total since Independence Day. Guys, we're almost in September. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 9 starts.
That's absurd.
Yeah. His worst start was against Houston. 6 innings, a homer, 9 strikeouts, 2 earned runs. In a no decision.
Yeah,
like, he's been lights out.
Colorado, Dodgers, Cubs, and he's going through the best of them.
Yeah, he's not facing cupcakes. It's Houston, it's the Dodgers, it's Cincinnati in Cincinnati. The Colorado start, again, Colorado is not good on the road, but it's still a good lineup, and he shut him down this week, 6 innings and 9 strikeouts with nothing earned. I saw a graphic, I think it was on ESPN, or not ESPN, MLB, MLB TV or whatever, MLB Network. His ERA in that period is like sub half of a run. It's like .43 or something since Independence Day. It's ridiculous.
Absurd.
All right, let's. You good to hang out for the next one?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move on to my matchup. It's going to be against Jason Ashby, Witness Protection. I take down an 11-8 win, and you know what? It's my 4th win in a row, and 3rd against top teams playing in the playoffs. I beat Ben, I beat Bobby, I did beat James Santangelo, but this is another top team here, and it's not a blowout win. I'm still waiting for that one to come so that I might be able to jump Benny and take that number 2 spot, but this is certainly a win that gets me healthy with a lot of the other things that happened this week. Puts me in 4th place, an 11-8 win. Close categories this week. I won by 3 ticks on the batting average, 2 and 2/3 innings pitched, a complete game, and 3 walks given up by a pitcher. Jason won by an error, and we tied in triples, home runs, and wins. For me on my bench this week, I went 7 for 33. That's a .212 batting average. 4 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, 4 RBIs, 2 steals, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. The only thing that plays there is a homer. And this is the 2nd week in a row I am absolutely pissed at myself for still not figuring out what to do with Kevin Pillar. He has been on fire for about 3 weeks now, and I just, for whatever reason, can't pull the trigger on making him my everyday right fielder over a guy like Oscar Mercado, who I really like, but he did not perform for me this week. And Pillar didn't perform for me either, but that's not because he didn't. He went 1 for 4 with a homer on Tuesday, 2 for 5 with a double on Saturday, and I was just playing the wrong guy at the wrong time, and I still don't know if I can pull the trigger on him. And it's going to get even more complicated when Stanton comes back. If he comes back, relatively soon, he's going to take batting practice in Seattle today. If he's off the DL, say end of this week or next week, when it sounds like he's going to come, Pillar might be droppable for me at that point, and that's going to be interesting if he's still hitting the way he is.
Yeah, and how do you justify playing Pillar over Stanton, even if he's coming back from the DL?
You can't. And my outfield is really crowded now. If Stanton were to come back, I'd be having 6 outfielders for 4 spots max, with Mercado and Jimenez and Stanton and Pillar all sort of in that right field utility area. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see what I have to do here. I did have to drop Scott Oberg this week. He's done for the season with the blood clot in his arm. But again, it was another great day or great week where I got one day where I locked down 4 starters and they just went off for me. This week, it was what day was it? I think it was Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday the 21st. I locked down 4 starters. 2 I had to sit there and stream, and one of them was really, really scary to try to stream, but it was just too juicy a matchup to give up. Let me jump into Wednesday here. So it's Justin Verlander's complete game against Detroit, even in a loss. 11 strikeouts. He only gave up 2 hits. The problem is they were both solo homers.
Right.
And I don't know what it is with Verlander and the long ball this year, but if he could just find a way to not be giving that up, he would have an even more ridiculous season than he does. It's an ERA sub 3, but he has a ton of home runs given up. The rest of the starts were Charlie Morton against Seattle at home, Mike Montgomery at Baltimore, and then I streamed Aaron Brooks who was the starter for Baltimore against Kansas City. One of those paid off, the other one didn't. And Mike Montgomery had been really good for me the previous 2 outings. This one, not so much. He gave up 5 over 5 with 3 homers. But Aaron Brooks gave me 5 innings, 1 earned run, 4 strikeouts, a 180 ERA, a 160 whip. At the end of the day, it was 26 innings, a 1-2 record, a complete game, 6 homers, which I did not like, but 6 walks, 25 strikeouts, a 381 average, and a 108 whip. I'll take that. And when you line up against Jason, I didn't think the innings were going to be this close. That was sort of my putting the pedal to the metal on innings and going, okay, come catch me. He almost did.
Yeah.
I had to stream Jake Junis. I grabbed Blake Trinan. Maybe something happens to Liam Hendricks. I don't know. But when Ben dropped him, I said, that guy's going on my bullpen. They're still going to use him.
Oh, yeah.
Trevor Richards was another great start. I really like Trevor Richards now going to Tampa, because Tampa is basically the cheap version of the Astros, where they figure out pitchers. Tyler Glasnow, Jalen Beeks, Blake Snell. They're starting to build a track record of putting together guys who are capable of becoming really, really good pitchers. I have liked Trevor Richards all year. His changeup is one of the filthiest ones in baseball. If he could just figure out how to use it and how to pair it with his fastball and maybe another tertiary pitch, he's going to be really good. This is another guy I'm going to be targeting late next year for a full season in Tampa. Otherwise, Dylan Bundy, I had no intention of actually starting. I did have to drop Brian Anderson as well, who's going to be missing the rest of the season. I believe he was hit on the hand. Was that what that happened there?
Yeah, he broke his pinky, I think.
Yeah, and, again, the Marlins have absolutely nothing to play for, and there's no reason to rush back what is arguably their best player. So he finishes the season with 20 homers, 66 RBIs, a 261 with a 342 on base. He was really good for me, and he filled the right field hole really well, and filled the third base hole for me when Moncada was out. Jumping over to Jason's team, he had a really interesting week. He went 14 for 55. That's a 255 batting average, 8 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 steals, 2 walks, 12 strikeouts, and an error, all on his bench. The 8 runs plays, he lost those by 5. The triple plays and the home run plays, all of that was left on his bench. The triple came from Chris Taylor, who he picked up on Wednesday. That day, he went 2 for 4 with a triple on his bench. Nick Senzel, 0 for 5, a run, a strikeout in center field. I think he wants to have that one back. He probably also wants to have the Francisco Mejia benching on Monday. He goes 1 for 4 with a homer. Darno, 1 for 3 at catcher. At the time, you don't think that's a big deal. But when the week is over, there's a missing home run.
Yep.
And finally, he benched Steven Matz on Sunday. And I was talking to him, when Sunday was just kicking off, I said, listen, this has been a dogfight of a matchup, and it really was. It bounced back and forth all week. I said, it's been a dogfight of a matchup. Best of luck to you today. But I find it interesting you're benching Steven Matz. And he goes, well, I just don't think that this is going to be a good start for him. It was 6 innings, 1 earned, a solo home run, a 150 ERA, an 050 whip. He did take the loss. It wouldn't have mattered in losses. It wouldn't have mattered in homers. It wouldn't have mattered in walks. But the strikeouts would have gotten him to 1 behind me, and the innings would have had him win that category.
Right.
I kind of.
Yeah, and if you're down by like almost a full run, and you're down by home runs, I don't see the risk in playing him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was down by over half a run in whip. There really wasn't a reason not to. He can't lose 2 games. It's not possible. But he was starting somebody else that day, and I think he was fearful that if they both take the loss, well, there goes another category.
Yeah.
But it's another opportunity for a win there. It's another opportunity for him to get a W and untie that category. He was, in fact, playing Framber Valdez. He picked up and streamed. He was the only guy I was really thinking of picking up to block him, because I don't know if you saw it, but I looked at Sunday's probable starters that were left on the waiver wire, man, and holy shit, that was a motley crew of nothing.
Brian Johnson was still there on Boston. I looked at it on Sunday, and I was thinking of blocking also, because I didn't know if Josh was going to pick someone up, but it just really wasn't worth it.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Beeks was out there as well that Jason streamed, and that was probably the best play as far as relief appearances is concerned, because that's what I was chasing on Sunday. I ended up picking up Joe Biagini. I had, Leclerc in the starting pitcher spot, and then 5 more guys. I picked up Ty Buttrey, who got into the game and got me a relief appearance. It just wasn't enough. I needed to get 6 because he was able to get 3 in his lineup. So, in any event, the homer and the triple is what plays on his bench. He did have a really rough day Wednesday, like I talked about. Chris Taylor with the triple. Travis d'Arnaud went 3 for 3 with an RBI on the bench. Ryan McMahon is the guy who is my savior this week. So he goes over 4 on Wednesday, and Ryan McMahon was the last position player in this matchup that was playing in a game. And it was one of those late-ish games that was delayed by rain in the Midwest, so that by the time the late game, which was the Dodgers and the Yankees, was starting, this game was only in about the 4th or 5th inning. And batting average was so incredibly close. I'm messaging Jason again. I was like, listen, I'm pulling Zach Britton out of the lineup. Ryan McMahon's the only guy who can win something for you. And he was up at the plate at that point, and I said, if he gets a hit right here, I might cry. Because that would turn it from this 11-8, it would flip the category, make it another 10-9. Not that I'm complaining about winning 10-9 and 11-9 the last 3 weeks, but this 11-8 was something I really needed. And to only get the 10-9 would have been really disappointing. He ended up getting an RBI, which didn't matter, because he hits this liner to center, and Harrison Bader just sort of flubs it and drops it, and he reaches on an error. And Jason's like, oh my god, he reached base. I was like, that's nice. I don't care about on-base percentage. The average is what matters, and the average actually goes down when you reach on an error because it counts as an out. So that's how I ended up winning the batting average category by 3 points.
What makes Sunday so exciting?
Oh god, it's so awesome. For his moves this week, so he picked up Dylan Bundy early in the week, got a fairly decent stream out of him. But the one that hurts, and he probably wants back, is Wednesday's start of Vince Velasquez. He was facing Miami, and that was the game where Miami put up 19 runs. Vinny Velasquez goes 2 1/3, a homer, a walk, 2 strikeouts, a 27 ERA, a 2.57 WHIP. It's really hard to come back from that. You see a 27 ERA, and usually that's what a reliever gives up a 3-run homer. That's when you see a 27 ERA, not a starter who goes 2 1/3. You pair that with the Jalen Beeks 12.60 ERA and 2.60 WHIP, and he pitched to a 5.08 and a 1.5 WHIP. It's not going to get it done against a lot of the top teams. So all right, we'll go to key players, and for me, we hit on this a little bit earlier. Holy shit, did I have myself a week from Juan Soto. A 345 average, a 457 on base, 13 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 3 RBIs, 6 walks, and 6 strikeouts. I love me some Juan Soto, man. This guy might be
13 runs.
13 runs. God. He was just absolutely on fire all week. 4 for 4 against Pittsburgh on Monday really set the tone for what it was going to be this week. Is he a first rounder next year? Do you think he sneaks into the top 16 next year?
I think he really could. I mean, look at his overall numbers here.
Mm-hmm.
The 290, 29 homers. He's got some speed this year. It's 12 steals.
Mm-hmm.
When all said and done, I think he's almost a lock for 30, 115 steals. And
Yeah.
300 average with walks as well. So
yeah, he walks a
that's
ton. He absolutely walks a ton. He's got 83 so far this year, and he's only 20 years old. Like, how good is this kid gonna be? Like, if I'm drafting to the back end of the first round next year, I'm probably targeting Juan Soto. If not for, the first rounder, I'm probably grabbing him early in the second then. This is a guy, Frank drafted him this year in the third, 41st overall. He went after your pick of Chris Davis.
Yeah, that's horrifying.
Jose Abreu had a great year for me, or a great week for me as well. 385 average, 393 on base, 4 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 11 RBIs, 4 strikeouts, and an error. This guy's on a walk year, and I really thought he was going to bounce back from a pretty disappointing season last year. He's right in line to hit 30 and 100 yet again, and I'll be interested to see where he goes. I really thought he was going to get traded at the deadline, but I'll be interested to see where this guy ends up. He's like 32 now. It'll be interesting to see where he goes.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
What is it like to? Because I've actually never had to kind of live and die off of one team. So you have 3 White Sox that you pretty much start every day. Like, what is that? The strategy or the feeling behind just sitting there rooting for the White Sox every night?
I loved the White Sox coming into this season. I thought they were going to be the dark horse team that could contend in the Central. I also really liked the Twins. I thought the AL Central was much more wide open than a lot of people coming into the season. And, I liked the Twins. I liked the White Sox. It shows in what I drafted and what I picked up. Jorge Polanco I picked up off the waiver wire. And, these 3 guys I drafted. The White Sox are so incredibly young. I live and die a lot by the White Sox. They're 10 games under 500. They've hit the skids a lot lately, but they're right where I thought they were going to be. I thought they were going to be 3rd place in the Central with the opportunity to take a big step forward next season, but that this was going to sort of be a coming out party season for them. For the most part, It's paid off. Yoan Moncada is having a wonderful season, hitting over 300 with over 20 homers, and he's going to get double-digit steals by the time the season's over. Abreu bounced back in a huge way. He's going to have 30 and 100. The one that disappoints me most is Eloy Jimenez. Coming into the season, I thought this guy wasn't getting enough hype because Vlad Guerrero was a thing. If Vlad Guerrero was not a top prospect and the Blue Jays just never drafted the guy and he was never born, Eloy Jimenez was going to be that guy that was going to be in that slot. The people were going to take really high in a draft, sort of as a let's see what this kid is capable of. He's not awful. He's not, droppable. He's got 22 homers on this year, 52 RBIs. He did miss some time. He's only hitting 239. He's a rookie.
Yeah.
You expect him to struggle against some pitching. He's just not going. He's struck out over 100 times already this year in only 93 games. He does not walk. He does not. He does not steal bases. He's just a big lumbering outfielder. He's basically Jose Abreu in the outfield. That's what he is. This lineup is gonna be really good for years to come.
Yeah.
Whether it's Jimenez, Moncada, Leury Garcia is really good. Tim Anderson has taken a really big step forward. You know just as well as anybody else, James McCann, this week aside, has come up and basically stolen Wellington Castillo's job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love me some White Sox. I love me some White Sox next year. It all depends on if they re-sign Jose Abreu. It'd be a huge deal, but I don't think that they're going to do that. Don't forget, this was a team who went out and signed guys to try to lure Manny Machado in. They've got money.
Right.
They've got money. They can go out and sign somebody big.
Yeah.
Finally, for me, I'm going to hit on a twin, Luis Arraez. You know, I saw this guy on Frank's team maybe 6-8 weeks ago, and I joked on the show. I said, "What is a Luis Arraez?" And he says, "Oh, it's Minnesota's top infield prospect, and he's hitting a ton." And I said, "Oh, okay, I'll keep an eye on him." And then Frank dropped him, like Frank's apt to do. So I grabbed him because I needed a third baseman when Moncada was down. So I grabbed him, I scooped him up. You know, the guy's hitting .335 on the season. And, oh, okay, he's a top prospect, right? It's probably not all that much. He's had 220 at-bats at this point. Like, that's a fairly decent sample size. This kid is a hitter. And he's hitting basically at the top of... He's hitting to the... He either hits, like, second or sixth. You know?
Okay.
You know, there's a couple of days where he jumps to first or fifth. He hit eighth on Sunday. But, like, for the most part, it's second or sixth. And that's fine in that lineup. You know, it's usually behind Mitch Garver, who's my catcher, or he's hitting, you know, behind, like, Nelson Cruz and Max Kepler in the middle of that lineup. Kid can just flat out rake. This week, .385 average and on base, 2 runs, a double, 2 strikeouts, 2 errors I don't like to see. I did lose the errors category. But, you know, when I won batting average by 3 ticks, I'm going to take that guy and put him up there.
Oh, yeah.
Pitching-wise for me, Justin Verlander, man, another great week. And, you know, I want to get your opinion on this because Ben and I really had a nice argument last week over complete games versus quality starts. Mike Haber, where do you stand on that?
I mean, if we're going based on every single category takes skill, right, from a manager to analytical skill, then you're going to go quality start. And I've kind of felt that way for a little while, especially when it was a complete game and a shutout as categories the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, quality starts take more skill from a manager to seek out. A complete game, unless you get someone like a Verlander or a Chris Sale or someone who really is a top 5, top 10 starter, those complete games are going to be few and far between. I don't think I've gotten one this year. Honestly, I don't think I've gotten one complete game this year. Even with the likes of Nola, Flaherty, and Soroka. So I think the quality starts would actually like really heat up the competition, and it wouldn't be a random this guy got it because of a rain shortened day. He got a complete game, and there goes one category for me for the week. Quality starts, you really need to do some digging and some research and look into those analytics. So that's where my vote is. But again, it's really up to Benny in the end. But I don't know. So I didn't hear the argument. So what were the two sides? Like,
so
which side were you on?
All season, you know, early on this year, I was, and it goes back to those rain-shortened complete games that have happened this year, and it's happened enough to be noticeable. It's happened enough where there may be a guy who gets into the playoffs by one game, and that's where it is. And is that really where we want the bigs to be? Is that really what you want to hang your hat on? Oh yeah, I got in because, I don't know, I'm just going to throw... Adrian Sampson threw a rain-shortened complete game. By the way, that's your only complete game of the season is from Adrian Sampson.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, like, is that the guy that you want to hang your hat on and say, I made the playoffs by one game because I threw a complete game and it was 5 2/3 and it was a loss, but it got me a complete game. And it was rain-shortened. Right. My argument has always been, take that stat away and give us quality starts. Right. And Ben's return argument is, yeah, but isn't that just another stat you can stream? You know, you can already stream for innings, and you can already stream for strikeouts, and you can already stream for wins. You can stream for quality starts as well, because you don't necessarily have to get a win in order to get a quality start. And I understand the argument, But again, much to your point, you can actually manage for quality starts, whereas you're not gonna manage for a complete game.
Right. You can't unless you draft someone who, like Verlander, or trade someone. I mean, that's really the only way. Otherwise, it's pure luck.
Yeah, and I don't like the idea that there are, and I forget the exact term that Ben used, but much to his point, it's sort of a throwaway category. And I don't feel like in a league as deep as ours, in a league as competitive as ours, we don't need to have a throwaway category. You know, whether it's, and he compared it to triples, and I said, but you can manage for triples. You can manage against errors. You know? Like, there are ways around doing that. Look, Jason's a perfect example. Jason has 42 triples on the year. The next closest guy is Ari and Chris Levy with 29. He drafted for that category.
Right.
Whether it's Benintendi or Merrifield or Victor Robles or any one of these guys, you draft for that category, for the steals category. Errors. Okay, I get errors is probably a bit difficult to A, draft for, and B, manage for, but it can still be done.
Yeah.
JD Martinez is left and right field eligible. He's a DH. He's not going to commit very many errors. Chris Davis, much the same way, left fielder. He's a DH. You can do that. And I agree with Ben in the sense, like, you can't get rid of errors because you need to have something that matters on the defensive side.
Yeah, agreed.
But I will. This is the hill I will die on. That complete games. Look, the leader in the clubhouse at this point with 5 complete games is Chris Levy. 5 all season. What's the point? It's a nice little bonus that we have when it happens. I don't feel like that is worth a spot anymore in this league with as competitive as this is. Imagine if every week we're going up head to head for quality starts too, instead of everybody tying most weeks in that category.
Yeah, it's true. I'm looking at Chris's team right now. He's got 3 complete games from Giolito.
Yeah.
And I don't see the other 2, but so that means I don't know if he dropped them or what. But yeah, 5 for a whole year. I'm right on board with you on this one.
The other 2 came from Zach Eflin of all people.
Oh, Zach Eflin.
Yeah. Yeah. Go figure.
If you feel like you're managing your way through the season and you're staying active and you're playing the matchups, then why have a throwaway category?
Exactly.
Why have it when you can have a category that you can manage your way through?
Yeah, it's something else to compete with. It's something else it's another category that every week you're going to be, say you're 10-5 through 15 weeks or 11-7 through 18 weeks. Like, it's another category that matters. It's another category that every week you're going to be fighting for. It adds more value to. Granted, it adds more value to starting pitching.
Yeah.
And maybe it is something where, okay, but the other thing about quality starts is you have to go 6 innings. Not very many starters are going even that deep anymore.
Right.
You stream guys like, just for example, this week, Jason streamed 4 guys. Only one of them gave him a quality start. Framber Valdez gave him a quality start. Felix Hernandez missed it by 1 out. Vinny Velasquez got blown up, and Jalen Beeks was a relief appearance, so that can't count either.
Right. And it might add that really interesting contradiction of, hey, I'm winning in ERA, but I'm down by 1 quality start. So
do I start this guy and hope for the best?
Yeah. Might make it more interesting. I don't know.
Benny.
I do hear his point in that you know it adds something exciting when it does happen, but I don't know. That's what the triple's for me.
Yeah, and it's not that we don't have exciting categories. Triples is there, obviously homers is there, but something like this, instead of rooting for them to throw a guy after 112 pitches into the ninth inning and, you know, hope he doesn't fucking throw his arm off, what if we're just rooting for him to make it through the sixth?
Right.
You know? Isn't that a bit more realistic?
Yeah, that's true.
All right, I'm off my soapbox again, Ben. We'll revisit this. We'll revisit this tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah.
Kenta Maeda gave me a good week as well. 6 innings. Hey, guess what? It was a quality start. 6 innings, a homer, a walk, 9 strikeouts. It was exactly a quality start. 6 innings, 2 earned, and an 0.83 whip. And finally, Trevor Richards, who I streamed. The only streamer quality start this week, by the way. 6 innings, a win, 5 strikeouts, nothing earned, an 0.50 whip. I really like that kid. For Jason this week, it's going to be Kyle Seager, and god damn it if that's not a guy that everyone had the opportunity to pick up. And I don't know who initially dropped him. I think it was Ari. Yeah, Ari dropped him the day before he went off with like his 3-homer game earlier this month. And Jason's fucking reaped the benefits here. 364 average, 481 on base, 4 runs, 5 doubles, a homer, 9 RBIs, a steal, 5 walks, and 2 strikeouts. You know, he wins RBIs, he wins steals, and to get a steal out of Kyle Seager, I mean, how many does he have on the season? 2? Yeah, exactly, 2.
Yeah,
so
2.
Yeah. Victor Robles is more the guy you expect to have the steals from. He had 4 this week, 207 average, 343 on base, 5 runs, a double, 3 RBIs, 4 steals, 4 walks, 6 strikeouts. And finally, and I say it every week, and I'll continue to say it until I'm blue in the face so this guy gets the real recognition he deserves, Anthony Rendon is the most underrated player in Major League Baseball. 483 average, 543 on base percentage, 6 runs, 3 doubles, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, a steal, 5 walks, 6 strikeouts. I remember distinctly in the draft when I saw him fly off the board, and I feel like it was right before me that I was just so mad that he flew off the board because I thought he was going to be an MVP candidate. He would be in a season that doesn't have guys named Cody Bellinger and Christian Yelich in the NL.
Yeah.
Any thoughts to Jason's offense here? He put up a decent week.
He did. But did Rendon have a hit every day? I'm looking at it now. Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He had a hit every day.
Yeah. He was playing the Mets. Of course he did. He played the Mets and then the Cubs.
Jason, he's got such a balanced team. It's really cool to look at, and he really did kind of piece this team together. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see how many of these guys he actually drafted versus how many he picked up, because it's really cool to see.
Well, just off the top of my head, McMahon's a trade, Adames is a trade, Rendon is a trade, Polanco's a trade, Taylor's a pickup, Senzel's a pickup, Merrifield's a draft, so he drafted Merrifield. Seager's
and Benintendi.
Yeah, and Benintendi, and I think Robles too. Yeah.
Okay.
So Robles, Benintendi, and Merrifield are his offensive drafts. I know he drafted Carlos Martinez. No, he didn't. He picked him up. Vargas, Valdez, Bailey, those are all. Kirby Yates, did he draft Kirby Yates? He drafted Kirby Yates.
Yeah.
Traded for Neris, picked up Melanson, traded for Will Harris. By the way, Harris, Neris, Adames, and McMahon, all 4 of those guys, he traded with Frank for.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yarbrough, he picked up. Quintana, maybe?
I think Quintana's a draft. And
Quintana's a trade, actually. Quintana was a trade between him and Andy.
Okay.
Darvish, I think, was a draft. Scherzer obviously was a draft. And that's it. So it's Scherzer, Darvish, and Yates, pitching-wise. So what, 6 guys out of his whole team?
Yeah, 3 hitters, 3 pitchers. That's absurd.
Yeah.
He's put together this third-place team.
with all of those trades, that's the big thing. Like, the Rendon trade, which was, I think it was like 9 players early in the season. I think Quintana was a part of that too.
Okay.
Yeah. Neris he got for Marco Gonzalez. Adames he got for. I want to say, was that part of the Austin Meadows trade? McMahon I know he got for Odorizzi. It just, and hell, he's got Steven Matz on his roster who's bounced around the league and been traded once.
Yeah.
So he's put together a hell of a team. Benji likes to hit on it. The guy's been in the league a long time and never made the playoffs. I think with this, he takes a loss here, 11-8. But I think this puts him in a really good spot. He's 9.5 back of you, but he's still like 4 up, 3.5 up on 6th place. It puts him in a nice spot here in 3rd. If he gets a good win this week against who's he playing this week? He's playing James Santangelo. If he gets a good win there, I think he's in. And I said a couple of weeks back that I thought he was going to be the guy to fall out. It's not him, and we'll get to that in a bit. Let's finish up with his pitchers this week. He again, we hit on him earlier, Hector Neris. Neris, he was traded for basically nothing in Marco Gonzalez. When the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen was in flux. David Robertson went down. They were using Pat Neshek a lot, and there was a question of whether or not this guy was actually going to be the closer. Well, here he is. 2 relief appearances, 2 saves, 2 innings, all clean, a .5 whip. Guy's got 23 saves on the season now. Like, it's a pretty big piece to get for Marco Gonzalez. Will Harris gave him a save as well, 3 innings. 3 relief appearances, 2 1/3 innings. Mostly clean, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, a 1.29 whip. And finally, Steve Cishek, who he picked up and has since dropped, 3 relief appearances, 3 innings, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, a 1.33 whip. I highlight those guys because he was able to take down saves 8-1, mitigate losses, and take relief appearances from me. Great week for him. And I really get the feeling like this guy is going to be a dark horse to win this whole damn thing.
I agree.
It's a scary team. It's a really balanced team, like you talked about, and we'll see what he's capable of.
Yeah.
With that, let's. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, just to finish up for you too. I think you're in a really good spot as well. I mean, yeah, it's close. You're only a game ahead of the 6th place team, but like you said earlier, winning 4 weeks in a row. I think you're trending towards, pushing. Who do you got this week? Who are you playing against?
I got Ari and Mike Sherman in the last 2 weeks.
All right, and Mike Sherman.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a bit rough.
Matchup.
It is. Yeah. It's a bit rough. I saw that early on in the season. I was like, really? My last 4 weeks are, my last 4 weeks was Jason, Ari, and Mike Sherman with James Santangelo. I'm like, that is a gauntlet to go through.
Yeah, but you're taking out all these top teams in the process, so no reason why you can't keep going.
Yeah. I certainly hope to. Ari this week. We talked about this last week, Ben and I did. Ari's going to go as the Colorado Rockies go. Well, the Colorado Rockies have 7 games this week, and they're all at home.
Yeah.
So here we go. This is gonna be rough, but I'm gonna look. I'm coming for my 3rd title, man. That's it. I'm coming for my 3rd title, and when I take my 3rd championship this year, I may just retire and let you guys actually play a season where somebody else wins.
And then you could just do your podcast, analyzing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll analyze everything and just sit back and go, I wouldn't have done that. 3-time champion. All right.
Judge the hell out of everyone. Yeah.
It's what I do anyway. All right, let's jump to the James matchup this week. Santangelo versus McCloskey. And this is the upset of the week right here. Santangelo takes this one down 13-5. And this puts McCloskey in a really scary spot, right? He led for a whole lot of the season, and we talked about early on in the year, if James could just get healthy, he was going to be a very dangerous team. The problem is he did not get healthy. He's actually gotten worse.
Yeah.
We'll hit on that in a moment. Close categories this week. McCloskey did not win anything close. Santangelo wins by a win, and they tied in triples, saves, and relief appearances. Everything else was pretty far apart, you know? For Santangelo, who won the week, he went 9 for 33 on his bench. That's a 273 average. 7 runs, a double, a homer, 4 RBIs, 5 walks, 10 strikeouts, 2 errors. None of that plays because he won runs, he won doubles, he lost homers by 5, he won RBIs by 9, he won walks by 13, he won strikeouts by almost 30, and he lost errors by 2. So all of that does not play. You know, I could tell you about a Daniel Murphy benching or a Mike Moustakas benching. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He didn't make a whole lot of moves this week. Picked up Howie Kendrick, picked up Joe Panic, and then dropped Joe Panic for a reliever. The relievers, looks like he went for it late in the week, picking up Luis Sessa, who did not get into the game. I have my hatred toward that guy because he absolutely blew up my shit one week, and I'm just not interested in ever owning him again. Yeah. For McCloskey this week, 6 for 27, that's a 222 batting average, 3 runs, 4 doubles, 3 RBIs, a steal, a walk, and 12 strikeouts. None of that plays either. Even the 4 doubles don't matter because he lost doubles by 10.
Yeah.
You know, nothing plays here. His team hit 245 for the week. He had 2 days where he hit 200 or worse. He trailed in this matchup all week, never got it close. The closest it was 7-9 after Tuesday. But from there, Santangelo just opened up a lead and kept it going. It's been a season of the Midas touch for McCloskey. You remember early on in the season, he was able to stream pitchers like nobody's business. And, you know, it shows because he's been able to play to a really, really great ERA that leads the league. It's currently sitting at 3.45 for the season. It's a third of a run better than you at 3.72. And there's only 3 teams with an ERA south of 4. So to be south of 3.5 is really indicative of how well he was able to stream. You know, Hyun-Jin Ryu's performances have obviously helped that as well. But, you know, it's sort of fallen off lately. But up until this week, his Midas touch turned from pitchers to offensive players. He was able to pick up a guy and guaranteed that guy was going to get 2 hits or a homer. Like, it was just a given. This week, it all fell apart. You know, the only guy he picked up to plug into his lineup that got him a hit was Jason Castro on Friday. Everybody else, 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts, 0 for 2 with a strikeout, 0 for 3 with a strikeout. You know, Asdrubal Cabrera gave him two hits and 2 RBIs on Sunday, but by then it was too late.
Yeah.
You know? And in fact, Asdrubal Cabrera is now the replacement for his newest guy who falls off on the DL, Jose Ramirez. You know,
Oh, yeah.
he had to drop Corey Kluber earlier this week, the guy he traded Matt Chapman for, thinking this is the guy I'm going to end up pairing with Hyun-Jin Ryu for my playoff push. You also remember, he lost Jamison Tyone earlier this year. Aaron Judge spent half the season on the DL. He's lost Joey Gallo. He traded away Giancarlo Stanton. Every time James McCloskey turns around, it's another injury. And he's still holding on to Byron Buxton, who's on the DL. So, you know, it's just a snake bit season for him. He traded for Chris Paddock, and that guy gets demoted. You know, to conserve his innings. It's a snake bit season for him, and he looks like he's falling fast. You know, this is a guy who is in his 5th year with the league, and he's never made the playoffs. He led the league for 6 or 7 weeks this year with a really great team. It's now back-to-back losses. His loss to you last week, his bigger loss this week. You know, he's hit the skids, and he's still got the best schedule to get into the playoffs. His final 2 weeks are your brother and Frank. It's a really favorable schedule. If he gets a winner, if he wins both, I feel like he's in. But he's even said to me, he goes, my team's falling apart. He goes, I really want to make the playoffs, but I just feel like if I make the playoffs, it's going to be a one and done anyway. And you know, you look at the team, it really is. It's falling apart at the seams. You know, he's still got Cody Bellinger and Gene Segura and Aaron Judge and Johnny VR, who was great this week, and Michael Conforto, who's hot. Pitching wise, it's Hyun-Jin Ryu, Chris Paddock, and Eduardo Rodriguez. And we talked about this a little while ago. There are rumblings that the Dodgers may shut down Ryu to get him ready for the playoffs. You know, his last 2 starts have not been good. The start in Atlanta and this start against the Yankees was awful. Maybe he's due some time off. Maybe he needs a couple of weeks rest to get ready for the playoffs because the Dodgers want to win the World Series. You know, they're not concerned with whether they win 100 games in the regular season when they're 20 games up currently.
I'm wondering if they're going to shut Paddock down too, because his past couple starts have been rough also.
Yeah, it's been really bad. 4 starts in a row. He had 1 quality start against Colorado at home on August the 10th. Otherwise, it's 3 really bad starts. 3 really bad starts. Now, again, that is against really good offenses too, though. It's against the Dodgers, it's against the Phillies, and it's against the Red Sox. So maybe that's what he's hurting for. But you know, I love me some Chris Paddock for next year, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's see. You know, again, moves. You know, James had to fill some gaps where he could. It really just didn't work out. He hits to a 245 245 average, a 321 on base percentage. That's going to compete some weeks. Just didn't this week against a really strong offense. We've talked about Benny and I have talked about James Santangelo's offense. You know, it's predicated on the Milwaukee Brewers and the Colorado Rockies. And those are 2 of the best offenses in baseball. You know, unfortunately for him, you know, McCloskey was able to dodge a big week from Christian Yelich, but there were a lot of other guys that hit. And let's go ahead and jump to their key players. Santangelo had Dexter Fowler. Where did this guy come from? Remember when he was good and rosterable? Well, apparently he was rosterable this week. He hit 208. That's not good. 387 on base. That's good. 4 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, 11 RBIs, 7 walks, 5 strikeouts. I think he hit a grand slam this week. I
remember this was the guy that you would draft when you wanted to win triple.
Yeah.
A few years ago.
Yeah, when he was in Colorado, he was just lights out. And then you know, he had 1 good season in Chicago, and now it's nothing. Marcus Semien, another guy I like, but I think he's going to end up losing his job at some point. 316 average, 409 on base, 3 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 4 RBIs, 3 walks, a strikeout, and an error. You know, living in Vegas, the Oakland A's AAA affiliate plays here in Las Vegas. Beautiful new stadium. Gone to see a bunch of their games. They've got a kid who plays shortstop by the name of Jorge Mateo. This kid is light out. Now, he doesn't have the power that Semien does, but he has the defense that Semien doesn't. He has the speed that Semien doesn't. And I don't know what Marcus Semien's contract situation is. I'm actually kind of surprised he wasn't a trade piece for Oakland this year. But if he's on a walk year this year, A, he's probably going to get a nice deal from somebody because he's got 22 homers and 7 steals. But B, he's going to end up if he's not on a walk year, I could see him moving to second base, or I could see Mateo moving to second base. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Who's playing second now for Oakland?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. Oakland A's.
Is it Chad Pinder? Is he the? I don't know if he's the everyday.
I feel like Pinder's more of an outfielder. Right now, the depth chart on OaklandA's.com has Caleb Joseph, but Chad Pinder is in that depth chart along with Jurickson Profar. That's not really a situation that is it Caleb Joseph? Corbin Joseph, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And the guy's hitting 212 with a 250 on base this year. Like,
yeah, it doesn't look like any of them really have a hold on that.
No, and there's not anybody on the DL that's going to be coming back. You know, the outfield is pretty set with Laureano, Grossman, Piscotty, and Canna sort of as a four-man outfield. Chapman and Olsen are locked down on the corners. So yeah, that would be the opportunity. I would be interested to see if they're going to call this kid Mateo up to play second for them going forward.
Yeah.
You know, even for the month of September when rosters expand. Just for a bit more insight on Jorge Mateo, because I like him so much. This season, 292 average, 333 on base percentage, 27 doubles, 17 homers, and 23 stolen bases in AAA. 89 runs scored in 111 games. Just he's a good strong boy. Good strong boy.
Yeah.
Finally, for Santangelo's team, it was Daniel Murphy, 333 average, 500 on base, 3 runs, 3 doubles, an RBI, 4 walks, and 3 strikeouts. His offense again is going to go as the Rockies and the Brewers go. This week, looks like the Brewers have 3 games at home and then probably a 4-game set on the road in Wrigley on the weekend. So be interesting to see how they do there. Like I said, the Rockies are home for all 7 games because fuck me, right?
Yeah, right.
Pitching wise for Santangelo, great week out of Dakota Hudson. 12 2/3, 2 wins, 7 walks you don't like, but 9 strikeouts, nothing earned, and 0.71 whip. Is this the next kid that's going to be like, you know, in that pipeline of Chris Carpenter, Adam Wainwright, Carlos Martinez, Jack Flaherty? Now this kid?
I don't know. They traded for him, right? Mid-season?
Was he? I feel like he was a prospect for them, but he may have been. I feel like he may have come from the Braves.
Blue Jays, Braves? I don't know. Something.
He's always been a Cardinal. He's made his debut as a Cardinal, but that doesn't necessarily mean he came through their system.
Right.
He was drafted by the Cardinals, 34th overall in the first round. So he's theirs.
All right.
Yeah.
Pair him with Flaherty.
Yeah.
And Michael, you know, you got a nice 1, 2, 3 there.
Yeah, and that might be a threesome you could take into the playoffs. Michael is having a bad year this year, but I mean, you know, we'll see. Yeah. We'll see what they're capable of. Tanner Roark, who has had a really nice bounce back season this year, gives him 6 1/3, a win, a homer, 7 strikeouts, a 2.84 ERA, a 1.11 WHIP. The quality start came against the Yankees at home in Oakland. You know, the trade to Oakland for him might be the best thing for him. You know, he goes from the Nationals, which was their stadium is much more pitcher friendly, to Cincinnati, and he has a really nice season for Cincinnati, but they trade him off to Oakland, and he could really have a nice year next year in Oakland. You know, this is exactly the type of guy that Oakland targets to try to get the best out of. You know, you look at guys like Bartolo Colon, who came through there. I'm trying to think. Jeff Samardzija came through there. John Lester went through there for a period of time. Like, they always seem to get the best out of guys you don't think of.
This Oakland could be sneaky in the playoffs this year if they make it with Mike Byers and Chris Bassett and we just mentioned Tanner Roark, Homer Bailey rejuvenated and stuff. Like this could be a scary team in the playoffs.
Yeah. And their bullpen, Trinan and Hendricks and Soria and Diekman, that's a pretty deep bullpen there.
Lou Trevino.
Yeah. And they just called up their one of their top prospects, AJ Puck, who's going to be pitching out of the bullpen for them. Jesus Luzardo is coming too. He's going to pitch out of the bullpen for them. You're right. This could be a really sneaky team. They're where are they at in the wild card standings? I feel like they're a wild card team currently.
They're either a wild card team or they're a game or something back.
They're a half game. They're a half game back of Tampa right now, and Cleveland is a half game ahead of Tampa for the first wild card.
Tampa's plummeting.
Yeah, Tampa's hurting. It's going to be Cleveland, Oakland, and Tampa because the next team back is Boston 6 out. So.
Right.
So it's going to come down to those three teams. They're going to play musical chairs for 2 spots.
Yeah, and you know what? With Jose Ramirez down for the year, I don't know who I'd rather play if I'm the Yankees.
Yeah.
In the first round, I don't know. It's a tough call.
If it were me, I would want Tampa to be in there because I feel like, with Blake Snell's struggles and, the kind of lack of number 2 they have there, I would be more apt to take on the Rays. Plus, I feel like the Yankees have kind of owned the Rays this year. I may be wrong, but that's just kind of the feeling I've got.
Yeah.
So.
They pretty much own the AL East, yeah.
Yeah.
Charlie Morton's the one pitcher that scares me going twice.
I forgot about him. He's on my team.
Yeah. The only one that scares me on that team.
Yeah. Finally, for Santangelo, we'll highlight Andrew Miller. 3 relief appearances, 3 innings, a save, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts with an .067 WHIP. It's interesting because Andrew Miller got the only save for Santangelo's team, and it tied the category with McCloskey. And McCloskey, we talk about it often. He traded for 2 closers in that big deal with Stanton. Neither one of them got a save this week. And I don't think Shane Green, I hit on it last week, Shane Green, since that trade happened, has had 2 saves the whole time. And now he's not even closing in Atlanta. They're using Mark Melancon.
Yep.
Amazing. For McCloskey this week, Jonathan Villar had a great week. It was .333 average, 400 on base, 5 runs, 5 homers, 6 RBIs, 3 walks, and 9 strikeouts. Delino DeShields, a pickup off of the waiver wire for him this week. DeShields, .294 average, 368 on base, a run, a double, 2 RBIs, 4 steals, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. I highlight him because obviously he won the stolen bases category by 3, and Delino DeShields gave him 4. Just, he picked up DeShields back on the 15th of August and held on to him for 11 days, and it helped him at least mitigate some of the damage from this week. Finally, Aaron Judge.
Tripled against us last week.
Did he? Oh yeah, he had a triple last week against you.
Yeah.
The only triple he had this week came from Jose Ramirez, so thank you for tying that category, and we'll see you next season. Aaron Judge finally is going to round out McCloskey's team here. 320 average, 346 on base, 5 runs, a double, 4 homers, 5 RBIs, a walk, and 9 strikeouts. I think this was his first round pick. I mean, he was at the turn, right? So at the end of the day, he picked the 2 Yankees back to back, basically. Yeah, he picked Aaron Judge first and then took Stanton after that. It's just so disappointing to see a guy who's worked this hard to put together such a strong squad, seeing it fall apart like an antique chair. Like, it's just sad to see. And I really hope he makes the playoffs, if for nothing else to hang his hat on. I led the league for 6 or 7 weeks consecutively, and I was able to make the playoffs this year. And he comes back and he builds off of that next year.
Yeah, I think he's got enough, too, to make that final push.
Yeah, pitching-wise, Marco Gonzalez is a guy he picked up off the waiver wire a while back, right around the All-Star break. And he looked at him and he said, he goes, Marco Gonzalez has 10 wins. He goes, I don't think he's done yet. He goes, I think he's got another 3 or 4 left in him. Well, he's gotten 4. And he got him 2 this week. 12 innings, 2 wins, 2 homers, 4 walks, 10 strikeouts, a 3 ERA, and a 1 WHIP. This guy has bounced around the league a ton this year. Jason actually drafted him in the 23rd round and traded him away to Frank, and here he comes back, and he goes up against Santangelo this week, gets him 2 wins. Just a crazy, crazy way this league is. Also, Sonny Gray is putting together a really good year for the Reds. This week he goes 6 innings, a win, a homer, 3 walks, 10 strikeouts, a 1.50 ERA, a 1.17 WHIP. This guy has an ERA on the season south of 3.
Yeah, I hate him. I actually hate him because the one season he had in New York, or 2 seasons, was atrocious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was
an ace in Oakland and he's an ace in Cincinnati. I don't get it.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it can't be the ballpark, right? Like, maybe it was just New York. It has to be just New York. It didn't work out. Didn't work out for Carl Pavano. Didn't work out for Kevin Brown. Didn't work out for Randy Johnson. There's just some guys who can't handle New York. And maybe Sonny Gray is that guy.
Yeah.
Finally, we'll hit on Eduardo Rodriguez, one of the pieces I traded away. 7 innings, a win, a walk, 6 strikeouts, nothing earned, an 0.86 WHIP. James won innings and strikeouts, so I'm highlighting the guys who had, obviously, the largest inning totals and the largest strikeouts. Because though he only pitched to a 3.36 ERA, Santangelo pitched to a 1.77 this week. That's pretty damn impressive. He only had one starter give up an ERA north of 3. It was just a really gross week to see. And McCloskey runs into a buzzsaw there, and there's not a whole lot you can do when a guy goes 40 2/3, 5 wins, a 1.77 ERA, and an 0.79 WHIP. Like, that's just almost unbeatable every week. We touched on McCloskey's schedule the rest of the way. Santangelo may have just played spoiler here. But he does face Jason this week and your brother in week 22. So he does have one more opportunity to get another win in there and spoil somebody else's season. But it's going to take a big win to drop Jason out of here.
Right.
So we shall see. We got one more for today. Are you still good for the last one?
Yeah, I'm in.
All right. We're going to highlight the final matchup of the week. Or of today, because tomorrow I'm going to have some more folks with me, and we're going to hit on the other 4. This week, today actually, we're going to hit on Barry Nisman, Plainview Dodgers taking down Nick Homan 14-7. Bottom feeders of the league they're playing spoiler the rest of the way, and it's one of those matchups where it was really competitive, but at the end of the day, it doesn't ultimately matter in the grand scheme of things, But Barry does pull himself out of the cellar, though. He does move himself up to 15th, so that's a plus. You don't ever want to finish last in this league. As a guy who finished 15th twice over my career, you don't ever want to finish last.
Yeah.
For Barry, who won the week, he went 9 for 51. That's a 176 batting average. 2 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, a steal, 2 walks, 12 strikeouts, and 2 errors. None of that plays. It's all gravy. They all, close categories were just. Nick didn't even win anything close. Barry won by a triple, a steal, 2 wins, a save, and a relief appearance. So, Barry taking this down as big as it was is a lot closer than it sounds when you say a double up of 14-7. It was a whole lot of pitching categories that really sealed the deal for him. And for a guy who's had, now it's going on 6 weeks of just absolutely atrocious pitching, to see this kind of performance, and again, he pitched to a 5.15 ERA. That's not good, but he gets the vast majority of the pitching categories this week. It was the hitting that kind of disappoints you when you only see 5 homers and 27 RBIs.
Yeah.
Barry's Barry's team has disappointed offensively for most of the season. I still point the finger at Paul Goldschmidt, even though he's right on pace to hit 270-ish and have 30 homers. Like, it's Paul Goldschmidt. Like, to get him at the back end of round one this year, I thought was an incredible steal, considering how high he had gone in years past. This is not a Paul Goldschmidt season, but it's still a really good year. Like, I think he and Mookie Betts take the biggest tumble next year, and I think if you could try to pair those guys, you might have a ridiculous year.
Yeah.
Do you attribute?
And look at the.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, look at Yuli Gurriel, like his numbers as a first baseman compared to Goldschmidt.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of season you're looking for.
Yeah.
With Goldschmidt.
You know,
so he did make up for it in some regard.
Right. Gurriel is hitting over 300. Similar home run totals, but Gurriel's got 20 more RBIs on the season. You know.
Yeah.
Just a shame that he doesn't have a third baseman to plug in there, and like. If these two were to pair up and have the season that you would expect, I think Barry would be in a much better spot.
Yeah.
This week for Barry, there was a few spots where he could have gotten guys into the lineup, but at the end of the day, again, offensively, there just wasn't a whole lot going on that he could have changed. His moves this week, he picked up Zach Eflin, got a quality start out of him. Quality start. But the rest of his pickups just weren't great. Steven Brault didn't give him a good start. Derek Rodriguez was bad. He picked up Brock Burke, whatever that is. That wasn't good. And ended it with Taylor Cole, who got kind of rocked. So kind of rocked. That's an inning and a 63 ERA with an 8 WHIP. That's really rocked. He did drop Miles Mikolas for Nick Whitgren on Saturday, it looks like, which I find really surprising. It looks like he was going for the relief appearances, and he got it, but, that was the last sort of holdover from his pitching staff from the draft, and it now sort of sets up with Anibal Sanchez as his ace, or Adam Plutko as his ace. Like, it's not a good rotation, and it's not good at all, actually.
And I tried to trade for Vasquez earlier in the year, and he's like, "This is the one pitcher I have that's going to keep me in." So I'm not getting rid of him. So
that's pretty surprising, I think he would have been able to get a solid pitcher. I could have seen that deal being early in the season, Jack Flaherty for him.
It was either Flaherty or Bumgarner. I believe one of the two was involved.
I don't know. I would have done that deal, especially considering there's not any other closers on Barry's team. Just punt saves and.
At that point, I only had Will Smith, so I was looking for some closer help.
Right.
Yeah.
The things that don't happen that change the league. That's for Nick this week, he goes 6 for 27 with a 222 batting average, 3 runs, a homer, 2 RBIs, 5 walks, 6 strikeouts, and 4 errors. None of that plays either. He won runs, he won homers, he won RBIs, he won walks, and he lost errors by 2 already, so 4 more don't matter. His pickups were nothing special. I hit on this kid Dom Nunez last week. He's a great hitting prospect, but it doesn't look like they're going to be starting him every day. They're liking Tony Wolters more. So, okay, fine. He's a backup catcher in Colorado. You stream him when he's in and hope he does well. The rest of it doesn't really matter. He got Brad Peacock. He got Dario Agrizal for Sunday. At the end of the day, it was just a rough week. He runs into a really tough matchup this week. And, for Nick, it's been a rough season too. He's had DJ LeMahieu, who's been great, but Rhys Hoskins has just not had the year that you would think of. George Springer missed a lot of time with injury. Yasiel Puig took a long time to start getting going. Franmil Reyes is a really great power hitter, but he doesn't hit for much average. Eddie Rosario is now on the DL. He traded for Austin Riley, who I called would fall off a cliff. He did, and now he's hurt. Other than Shane Bieber, his pitching staff hasn't been great. Wade Davis has been a disaster. Ken Giles has been hurt. Jake DeGrom has been fantastic. Wade Miley's been good. But the one person that he drafted that he thought would anchor this rotation was Luis Severino, who he still hasn't seen.
Yeah.
At this point, do we even think Severino is going to play? Is he going to come back this year?
I think that Boone said he's coming back in a week or so. But he could be one of those bulk starters.
Yeah.
One of those, Chad Green pitches an inning or two and Severino pitches 4 innings.
Yeah. And is that really what you wanted when you drafted this guy? Where did Nick draft this guy? Draft him in the 6th round.
Yeah.
You and I have as many innings completed this year as Luis Severino.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a 6th round pick. It's just rough to see, and you see why guys end up where they do in the standings when you see 6th round picks like that just don't pan out. I think there was thought that he would be back sometime around the All-Star break. We're almost to September now, and you haven't seen him, and it's rough. It's rough. Key players this week for Barry. I hit on this guy earlier when we were talking about the White Sox. Leury Garcia, fantastic year for him. 259 average, 310 this week on base. 5 runs, a double, a triple, an RBI, a steal, a walk, 5 strikeouts, and an error. Barry won triples. There it is. He won steals by 1. There it is. And, this guy has been a real firecracker leading off for the White Sox every day. 283 average on the season, 15 steals, 7 homers. Scoring a ton of runs in front of that lineup. He's got 81 runs scored this year. The only thing you don't like from this guy is he just does not walk. He's only got 18 walks on the season. Otherwise, this is like your perfect leadoff hitter in front of guys like Moncada, McCann, Abreu, and Eloy.
Yeah, absolutely.
We hit on Yuli Gurriel, 375, 464 on base this week. 3 runs, 2 doubles, a homer, 5 RBIs, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Houston is just so goddamn strong. This guy is hitting 5th or 6th in their lineup every day, sometimes even 7th.
Yep.
God, it feels like we're heading toward another Dodgers-Astros World Series, don't you?
Yeah, I'm really not looking forward to that.
Well,
you can't with that rotation. I don't know. I don't think the Yankees have a shot, but
yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah,
Guess it.
The Yankees hitting could beat it, but you're going to match up against Verlander, Greinke, and Cole for 6 of the 7 games.
Yeah, we've got Herman, Tanaka, and Paxton. That would be our top 3.
Yeah, it doesn't really match up very well. It's not a good. But if I'm honest, the Yankees do have the advantage in the bullpen. Ozuna's been great all season for Houston, but they've now lost Presley to the DL, if I'm correct. They lost one of their other key relievers. Picking up Joe Biagini was really awesome for them. I think that's another kid, much like Aaron Sanchez, that's going to succeed being on Houston. But in any event, and finally for Barry, Yadier Molina, 375 average, 483 on base percentage, 3 runs, a double, 3 RBIs, 5 walks, and a strikeout. I highlight him because this was Ben's worst performer last week, and he turned around and came right back and hit for a great average and on base, and it propelled Barry to the win in those categories.
Yeah.
This guy is 47 years old and still hitting?
47, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he just turned 47.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Pitching wise for Barry, we hit on Felipe Vasquez. Three relief appearances. The only save of the matchup gives him that category. 3 2/3. He also gave him 2 wins. So, and he won the wins category by 2. So Felipe Vasquez, much to Barry's point, is keeping him in it every week. And here's him winning 3 categories on the back of Felipe Vasquez. Anibal Sanchez, every week that I highlight Anibal Sanchez because of his good starts, I kick myself in the ass because I was the last person to drop him before Barry picked him up. I streamed him for a start back in July. Actually, it was way back in June. Way back in June, I streamed him for 1 start, and I was like, that was nice, thank you, and I dropped him. And Barry's had him ever since. And he's churned out quality start after quality start. Quality starts, Ben. He's churned out quality start after quality start. And, he's really become basically Barry's ace. This week, 8 1/3. The start was in Wrigley. 8 1/3 in Wrigley. A win, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, 1 earned, and 108 ERA and 036 WHIP.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. Finally, I'm going to highlight...
He did this for Atlanta, too, last year, right?
Yeah, and he left Atlanta and signed with the Nationals. He had an awful couple seasons in Detroit, after coming there from Florida. But after that, he left Detroit and signed a small deal with Atlanta, had a great year, and now is sitting pretty in Washington. I mean, let's be honest, it's Washington. They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
They're not going to win. They're not going to win any playoff series. They're bad.
No, of course not.
Yeah. Finally, I'm going to highlight Yimi Garcia, another guy that Barry picked up and dropped this week. 3 relief appearances, 3 innings, 5 strikeouts. Again, it's the relief appearances, and it's not taking the loss in a lot of these games because he only lost 1 game all week. That was Zach Davies. So he won a lot of these pitching categories. For Nick this week, it was Miguel Sano had a great week. 292 average, 320 on base, 5 runs, 2 doubles, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, a walk, 10 strikeouts you don't like. But for a guy who, was it last season, got demoted to single A?
Yeah.
Yeah. This guy, he's hitting pretty damn well in that lineup. 26 homers, 57 RBIs. The Minnesota lineup is powerful. And
yeah, they're scary.
Nick got him. Do you know what round Nick picked him without looking?
Without looking, I don't know.
Take a guess.
15.
24th.
Wow.
24th round, he gets 26 homers out of this guy. Just insane.
And he's had him on his team the
whole year. All year he's been on Nick's team. It's a hell of a pick.
Yeah.
A highlight Franmil Reyes as well. 333 average and on base percentage with no walks. 4 runs, a double, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, 4 strikeouts. I'm very interested to see what happens with this guy next season as well. There was sort of a logjam in San Diego, and this was the guy they shipped off in order to make that happen, in order to clear that up. I'll be interested to see what Cleveland does with him next year, because are they going to slot him in as the DH over Carlos Santana? Is Carlos Santana really their everyday first baseman? Or does he play some outfield with, Puig and Naquin and Mercado and, Greg Allen, all on that team?
Yeah.
Guy is an absolute just slugging machine. He's got 32 homers this year. Thing is, he only has 60 RBIs.
Yeah. He was playing, half his games in San Diego, too. Right,
in a bad lineup. But much more to that point, he's hitting at the bottom of this Cleveland lineup. He hits 7th those days.
Oh, are they still hitting Kipnis in front of them, too?
Let's take a look at yesterday as a good example. Yesterday, their lineup had Lindor, Mercado, Santana, Puig. Reyes was batting 5th.
Kipnis behind
Okay.
him. The last time he batted 7th was the day before. We'll take a look at that lineup. Lindor, Mercado, Santana, Puig. That seems to be their top 5. Jose Ramirez was batting 5th that day, and then Kipnis and Franmil Reyes. I can understand the lefty-righty thing. They were facing Glenn Sparkman. I don't know or really care which hand he throws with.
I don't think it matters. I think he switches every day.
Yeah. He's the new Pat Venditti. He throws with both hands.
Yeah.
In any event, I'm interested to see what happens with this guy next year. He's probably a mid to late round pick for some power. He was also drafted by Nick, 25th round. So in the 24th and 25th round, Nick got nearly 60 home runs.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That is. I was in talks with Nick for a while about getting Franmil Reyes at one point. When Stanton, when I was really looking for an upgraded right field, but at the end of the day, I found it in Giancarlo Stanton, and that was really disappointing that I did that. But Nick was pretty adamant. Like he liked his outfield. He really liked the Springer, Hoskins, Reyes, and Puig thing he has. And
Rosario, yeah.
Yeah, and Eddie Rosario. He's pretty rich in the outfield. It does create a bit of a logjam, but you can move Hoskins to first base and kind of alleviate that.
Right.
And finally, we'll hit on Rhys Hoskins. He hit 154. That's a bad batting average, and he really hasn't hit very much for average this year at all. But he did have 7 walks, I think it was. Yeah, 7 walks for a .476 on base percentage. 7 runs, a double, a homer, 3 RBIs. He didn't have a homer for a very, very long time. And he finally came around and hit a bomb on Sunday against Miami.
Yeah.
He's been a bit of a disappointment. And coming into the season, James McCloskey and I were discussing the Phillies lineup, and he said, watch Rhys Hoskins have a better year than Bryce Harper. And when Bryce Harper was hitting really poorly in the beginning of the season, Hoskins wasn't, and Hoskins was hitting pretty well. And it looked like that would come to fruition. It just doesn't look like it's happening this year. I think they're exposing Hoskins and not pitching to Harper now.
Yeah, and he's getting on base. Like the pitching around him. I don't know where he's hitting in the lineup anymore. I guess he was hitting leadoff for a little bit, moved into the second slot.
Yeah.
But he's hitting right in front of Harper, which is so. I don't know why they're putting him on base so much.
That's a weird way to structure that lineup.
Yeah, very strange.
Like, you have guys who can hit leadoff, and here's the other thing. Hit Real Muto leadoff. You can hit him leadoff. You can hit Gene Segura leadoff. They did Cesar Hernandez yesterday.
Yeah.
Like there's Scott Kingery's a thing. Like, why do you have to hit Hoskins leadoff?
It doesn't.
Is his on base percentage that good? It is .381. Yeah, I would say it's pretty good. He has over 100 walks. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So he's kind of like Jim Thome. Like, he's not going to hit for great average, but he's going to walk a ton. Got it. Good to know for next.
He might lead. Does he lead the league in walks right now?
If I had to guess, I bet it would be like Mike Trout or, maybe even Carlos Santana. Santana's got a ton. Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Nope. He and Mike Trout are in the lead, 101 walks apiece. And then Carlos Santana with 96.
Yeah. There you go.
I'm trying to see. Oh, you've got a guy in the top 5.
Is that Bet?
It is Mookie Betts.
Yeah. You got Soto?
I do. He's 7th with 83.
Okay.
Yep. We'll jump to Nick's pitchers. It's going to be Shane Bieber, as expected. 13 innings, a loss, 15 strikeouts, 3 homers, 3 walks, a 2.77 ERA, a 1 WHIP. The starts come from one was in New York that he took the loss 7 strikeouts. That was a really great game, but the Mets kind of beat up on his bullpen. It ended up being 9-2. The other game came at home against Kansas City in a no decision. 7 innings, 8 strikeouts. Obviously, the Kansas City is the better start, but not by a whole lot. He's been an absolute ace. He's been everything I thought that Trevor Bauer was going to be this year. And Bauer was, at this point, is a colossal disappointment.
Yeah.
Jake DeGrom was great for Nick as well. 7 innings, no decision, 13 strikeouts, and a walk. That was that extra innings game against Atlanta where he homered to give him his only run support. And, it was a really good game. We lost because, of course, we did, because it's Atlanta and they beat us. But 7 innings, 13 strikeouts. You'll take that every time from your ace. He hasn't given up more than 2 runs in 9 straight starts and 10 straight quality starts. Jake DeGrom is a thing. He's fantastic.
Yeah, there you go.
There's a quality start machine as well. And finally, Wade Miley gave him 2 great starts this week. 10 2/3, 2 wins, 12 strikeouts, 3.38 ERA, a 150 WHIP, 2 homers, and a walk. At the end of the day, Nick, he won strikeouts, he won innings, and he won ERA. So I'm highlighting the 3 guys that he hit on there. That will conclude this half of the review this week. Mr. Haber, thank you so much for filling in for Benny this week. You did a great job, and I'm sure. Oh, we've got games underway already today.
Oh, do it.
Yeah, there are games underway. We've got because I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh wow, Frank has jumped out to a 3-0 lead on you. Where is it? What do we have going on?
What game is on?
That would. What the hell?
Oh,
it's showing
the Braves and the Rockies.
And Ozzie Albies gave him a double. So we're off and running. Mike Haber's going to lose this week to Frank. I'm calling it right now. Epic upset. 16-1. This is the NCAA tournament. Mike, thanks again, man. I appreciate it. And guys, as I say every week, you want to come on the show? Just let us know. We've got 2 weeks left of the regular season. Tomorrow we're going to have somebody who has not yet been on the show. I'm going to save that as a surprise. And Ben will be back with me. Until then, it's been real, it's been fun, and it's always real fun in the bigs. We'll see you soon.